describing in your launch speech that we played some of right there, sounds like Donald Trump. Did you change your mind?
No, listen, we absolutely, positively, unequivocally need an America that's not filled with victims. I'm actually talking about how Joe Biden has destroyed our economy and made victims out of people waiting for the government to show up. I'm talking about having a president who's weaponizing the DOJ against political adversaries. We need Lady Justice wearing a blindfold. I want America, every single American in every corridor of this nation, to have confidence in their DOJ, not a Biden-led DOJ. I want every child growing up in poverty like I did to have access to quality education. Unfortunately, the Democrats have sold their souls to the teachers' unions, trapping poor black kids in inner cities into failing schools and out of their best future. I want a nation where every child looks into the future and says, the American dream works for me. I was that kid. And so when I think about bringing this country together, not under grievance, but over greatness, not being victims, but being victorious, I am talking about the future of this nation and politicians who get in the way of that. Today, that's Joe Biden.
And you don't see any grievance in Donald Trump's campaign for president?
Well, here's what I can tell you. And for a person who's seen the DOJ weaponized against him, for a person who, before he was ever sworn into office, the Washington Post said they were going to make sure that he is a one-term president. When you look at the challenges that he faced, there's no doubt that he has been aggrieved. The question is, what are the American voters looking for? Here's what they're looking for. They are looking for a president who represents their best future and not his. That president is not Joe Biden. It is Donald Trump.
Yeah, and we should say that some of what you just said, that we don't have evidence to back up. But what you did say on Friday, Senator, is that when you endorsed Donald Trump, is that he will, quote, restore law and order, which is some of what you're talking about here this morning. As president, he did try to overturn a legitimate election. He called January 6 rioters hostages and promised to pardon them. He is charged with keeping classified documents and obstructing attempts to get them back. And on the campaign now, he's arguing that presidents should have total immunity, even if they, quote, cross the line. How is that law and order?
Well, he has a legal team that can answer the questions of the legal challenges that he faces. But what I can tell you is that when you look around the cities, when you grow up in poor communities like I did, and you watch the crime ravishing your communities, you ask yourself, what president has allowed that to happen? It's Joe Biden. When you have DAs around the country that says it's no longer a crime to steal $1,000 worth of goods, and those stores start closing in San Francisco and across the country, you ask yourself, what president allowed that lawless behavior to continue? That's Joe Biden. You ask yourself, who can restore the kind of law and order in our nation to allow it to go forward? That would be Donald Trump.
Senator, I understand that you're talking about Joe Biden, but I do want to get your thoughts in a more fulsome way on Donald Trump, because your endorsement was a big deal and is a big deal. I just want to take one of the examples that I gave. Donald Trump calls the January 6 rioters hostages. You were at the Capitol that day. You said that you took off your jacket, you rolled up your sleeves, and you were prepared to defend yourself, quote, presumably until I died. Would you call the people who are now facing prosecution hostages?
I would say that every single person facing our justice system should have justice done. The facts and the evidence in each individual case matters. I have confidence that that process will play out. Here's what I said also in the book that I wrote. I talked about January the 6th because I'm one of the few people who was actually there. With the people outside, 99% of the people who showed up were there to exercise their First Amendment rights. What I said then is what I'll say now. I don't hold those people at harm. I don't hold them responsible for the actions of a few. I do hold the few responsible.
So the few who are...
People have to be responsible for themselves.
So to use your words, the few who are being prosecuted, going through the justice system, Would you call them hostages?
I believe that our Department of Justice should continue and allow a jury of their peers to make the decisions. That's America.
So just to be clear, and I want to move on, you disagree with Donald Trump calling them hostages, sounds like.
Just for the third time. Yes, I believe that we should have confidence in restoring the blindfold to Lady Justice's eyes.
Okay. Senator, Donald Trump is launching some pretty personal attacks against Nikki Haley, who I know you've known for a very long time. He suggested she isn't eligible to be president, even though she is. She was born in your home state of South Carolina. He repeatedly mocked her given first name, Nimrata, even though she has gone by her middle name, Nikki, her whole life. Are you comfortable with that kind of rhetoric from the president, from the former president?
Well, I'm watching rhetoric on all sides of the issues facing becoming president. What I mean by that is the rhetoric from Joe Biden is terrible, but it's salacious. Nikki Haley questions whether 70-year-olds should be allowed to run for president. I think there is so much negativity and toxicity in this aim to becoming president again or for the first time that we should be very clear and look at both sides of the comments made. What I can tell you, the average voter is more interested in their future and their kids than they are the comments being thrown around by political candidates.
Would you rather that the man you endorse not use terms like Nimrata, names like Nimrata, seeming to try to make a point to his supporters?
Well, I would like for all politicians to comport themselves in a way that is consistent with the highest office. Mm-hmm. On the campaign trail, people say things, and interestingly enough, then after the campaigns are over, everybody unites. What we need in the Republican Party is to start uniting behind one candidate. That candidate is only going to be Donald Trump. So when we're thinking about what's next, it shouldn't be attacks against each other. We should turn our attention to Joe Biden and to the American people and what they want. They want a better future. They want another American century. They want hundreds of thousands of good paying jobs across this nation. When we start talking about the underlying issues and the principles that undergird human flourishing and what makes America the most exceptional country on the planet, then we're having a conversation. That won't happen until we get to the general election. That should start right now.
Senator, when you were with Donald Trump in New Hampshire on Friday, some people in the crowd were chanting VP. Would you like to be Donald Trump's running mate?
The only thing I want is 4 more years of Donald Trump and a Republican majority in the Senate, majority in the House, and the White House, so that poor kids who are today growing up in neighborhoods like I grew up in have a chance for quality education. I want kids to look to their future and believe that America, it's their oyster. Yeah. They can have whatever they want. That's what I really want. And if I can help achieve that through my endorsement by being on the campaign trail in my home state of South Carolina for the next 4 or 5 weeks and then beyond, that's the goal. If you don't think about yourself, but think about the country first, we'll be in good shape.
That wasn't a no. That door is wide open. Fair read?
Well, Dana, you can take it any way you want. My goal is to do one thing. It's always been to do the same thing. Make America and Americans believe in our future in the way that we do not today. Whatever that takes.
Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, thank you so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Dana, happy Sunday. Take care.
And one candidate who will not be on the ballot in New Hampshire on Tuesday is President Joe Biden. Coming up, what's making some of his supporters there a little nervous? And is this Tuesday the last gasp of the Never Trump movement in the GOP?